Imagine this. Deep beneath the mountains of southwestern Poland, sealed behind tons of rock and concrete, sits an armored train. On board, 300 tons of gold, priceless jewels, stolen art, and the secrets of a dying regime. For 70 years, treasure hunters, historians, and conspiracy theorists have chased this legend through tunnels, forests, and archives. Millions have been spent. Dozens of excavations have been attempted, media frenzies have erupted worldwide, and yet nothing has been found. But here's the question that keeps people digging. Is the Nazi gold train real? Or is it history's greatest hoax? This is the story you've never heard told this way before. Spring 1945, the final days of the Reich. Let me take you back to a moment of absolute chaos. It's late April 1945. The Third Reich is collapsing. Soviet forces are closing in from the east. American and British troops advance from the west. In the city of Breslau, now Wrocław, Poland Nazi officials face a desperate situation. The city is surrounded. Defeat is inevitable. And they're sitting on a fortune. According to legend, sometime in the spring of 1945, an armored train departed from Breslau, loaded with treasures looted from across Europe. Gold bars, jewelry, artwork, and documents. The train was heading southwest toward the relative safety of the Owl Mountains, where the Nazis had been constructing a massive underground complex called Project Riese. The train entered a tunnel, and it was never seen again, the underground fortress. To understand why people believe this story, you need to know about Project Riese, German for giant. Starting in 1943, the Nazis began constructing an enormous network of underground tunnels, bunkers, and facilities in the Owl Mountains near the town of Wałbrzych. Forced laborers, prisoners of war, and concentration camp inmates were worked to death, carving these tunnels out of solid rock. The purpose, historians still debate it. Some say it was meant to be Hitler's Eastern Front headquarters. Others believe it was a secret weapons facility or a storage depot for looted treasures. Whatever its purpose, Project Riese was never completed. As Soviet forces approached, the Nazis evacuated, sealed many of the tunnels, and left behind one of World War II's greatest mysteries. And somewhere in those sealed tunnels, according to the legend, sits the gold train, the deathbed confession. So where did the story come from? According to reports, in 2015, two treasure hunters, Piotr Koper and Andreas Richter, approached Polish authorities with an extraordinary claim. They said they had a map drawn by a German man on his deathbed, showing the exact location where the gold train had been hidden. The man allegedly worked on the train or the tunnel project and kept the secret his entire life. Only at the end, consumed by guilt or a desire for the truth to be known, did he reveal the location. That map led Koper and Richter to a specific stretch of railway line near Wałbrzych. And when they conducted radar scans, they claimed to have found evidence of a train buried beneath the earth. The discovery made international headlines. August 2015, the world takes notice. When news of the supposed discovery broke in August 2015, it triggered a media frenzy unlike anything Poland had seen in years. News crews from around the world descended on Wałbrzych. Treasure hunters flew in from multiple continents. The Polish government got involved. Local officials held press conferences. Piotr Koper and Andreas Richter presented radar images that they claimed showed a train approximately 100 meters long, buried 8 to 9 meters underground. The images were grainy, open to interpretation, but tantalizing. The Polish government issued official warnings. The area might be booby-trapped with explosives or poison gas. Treasure hunters were told to stay away. This wasn't a game. But the excitement was unstoppable. The official investigation. Under intense public pressure, the Polish government authorized an official investigation. Experts were brought in. Ground-penetrating radar surveys were conducted by independent teams. In November 2015, work began on the site. Excavators moved earth. Engineers studied soil samples. Historians combed through archives looking for documentation. The world watched and waited. The economics of hope. You might wonder, why did Poland take this so seriously? partly because the story captured the national imagination, but also because there was money involved, lots of it. Under Polish law, anyone who discovers a treasure is entitled to 10% of its value. If the Nazi gold train existed and contained even a fraction of the rumored wealth, Koper and Richter stood to become very, very rich. Tourism in Wałbrzych skyrocketed, hotels filled, restaurants thrived. Souvenir shops sold Nazi gold train t-shirts and coffee mugs. The local economy boomed on speculation alone. The legend had become an industry. August 2016, the moment of truth. In August 2016, nearly a year after the initial announcement, the excavation team began digging at the site Koper and Richter had identified. Cameras rolled. Journalists stood by with microphones ready. The world held its breath. What they found was nothing. No train, no tunnel, no gold. Just earth, rocks, and remnants of old railway infrastructure. The radar images that had seemed so promising, experts concluded they showed natural geological formations or old construction debris, not a hidden train. On the 23rd of August 2016, explorers admitted the dig had been a bust. There was no Nazi gold train at that location. The scientific verdict, Professor Janusz Madej, a geologist involved in the independent analysis, didn't mince words. He said, "To err is human, but to persist in defending error is just plain stupid. The science was clear. The radar data had been misinterpreted or worse, manipulated." Later reports revealed that Koper and Richter had used a controversial method called radiesthesia, a pseudoscientific technique similar to dowsing. In other words, they were hunting for a train worth hundreds of millions of dollars using methods no more reliable than a fortune teller's crystal ball. The aftermath. The failure didn't end the search, it just redirected it. In 2023, reports emerged that treasure hunters were preparing to resume the search in Poland, this time with new technology and new theories about where the train might be hidden. The legend refuses to die. The historical evidence. Let's step back and ask, is there any real evidence that a Nazi gold train existed? The answer is complicated. Yes and no. We know the Nazis did use trains to transport looted wealth. The so-called Hungarian gold train is a documented example, a train carrying valuables stolen from Hungarian Jews that was captured by American forces in Austria in 1945. We also know that in the final weeks of the war, Nazi officials made frantic efforts to hide or evacuate treasure. Some succeeded. Much of the wealth was destroyed, lost, or captured. But as for a specific armored train hidden in the tunnels near Wałbrzych, there's no solid documentary evidence. The testimony problem. Much of the Nazi gold train legend rests on second-hand accounts and deathbed confessions. But here's the problem with deathbed confessions. They're impossible to verify. Did the German man who allegedly drew the map really work on the train? Or was he repeating a rumor he'd heard decades earlier? Was he confused? Was he lying? We'll never know, because he's dead. And that's the trap with legends like this. They're built on stories that can't be checked, testimonies that can't be cross-examined, and maps that lead nowhere. Why historians are skeptical? Professional historians have been skeptical of the Nazi gold train story from the beginning. Why? Because the logistics don't make sense. Moving a 100-meter-long armored train into a hidden tunnel, sealing it, and covering all traces would require massive resources, heavy equipment, and dozens, if not hundreds, of workers. And all of this would need to happen in the final chaotic weeks of the war, with Soviet forces closing in and German infrastructure collapsing. It's not impossible, but it's highly improbable. Why we can't let go. Here's what fascinates me about this story. Even after the failed excavation, even after scientists debunked the radar images, even after experts said there's no credible evidence, people still believe. Why? Partly, it's human nature. We love treasure hunts. We love mysteries. We love the idea that somewhere, just beneath our feet, lies unimaginable wealth waiting to be discovered. But there's something deeper going on. The Nazi gold train legend isn't really about gold, it's about hope. For people in towns like Wałbrzych, the legend represents the possibility of transformation, a discovery that could change everything: jobs, tourism, prosperity. And for treasure hunters, it represents the ultimate prize proof that they were right all along. The cultural impact. The Nazi gold train has become part of Poland's cultural landscape. It appears in novels, documentaries, and even video games. Tour companies offer Nazi gold train expeditions through the tunnels of Project Riese. Museums display artifacts from the tunnels and tell the story of the search. The legend has become a tourist attraction in its own right, train or no train. The copycats and scams. Where there's treasure fever, there are scammers. In the wake of the 2015 announcement, dozens of people came forward claiming to know the real location of the train. Some sold maps, others offered exclusive tours. A few tried to launch crowdfunding campaign. One particularly brazen con artist claimed to have a letter from a former Nazi officer confirming the train's existence for a price. The Polish government had to issue warnings about treasure scams targeting gullible believers. So, is it real? After all the digging, all the radar scans, all the documentaries and press conferences, what's the truth? The honest answer is, we don't know for certain. Could a Nazi gold train be hidden somewhere in the tunnels of Poland? Theoretically, yes. The area is vast, the tunnels are extensive, and much of Project Riese remains unexplored. But is it likely? Most experts say no. The lack of documentary evidence, the logistical challenges, and the repeated failures to find anything concrete all point to one conclusion. The Nazi gold train is almost certainly a myth. But almost certainly isn't the same as definitely. And that tiny sliver of uncertainty is enough to keep the legend alive. Here's what I keep coming back to. Maybe the Nazi gold train doesn't exist. Maybe it never did. Maybe it's just a story told by desperate people in desperate times, amplified over decades into something bigger than it ever was. But does that make it any less powerful? The legend has brought attention to Project Riese and the horrors committed there, the forced labor, the deaths, the suffering. It sparked conversations about who owns history, who has the right to treasure, and what we owe the victims of the past. And it's reminded us that sometimes the search itself matters more than what we find. The questions I'm leaving you with. So here's what I want to know from you. First, do you think the Nazi gold train is real, or is it just a legend that refuses to die? Second, if a train was found tomorrow loaded with gold stolen from victims of the Holocaust, who should it belong to? The treasure hunters who found it, the Polish government, the descendants of the victims? Third, is it ethical to turn tragedy into treasure hunting? Or is searching for the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, always worthwhile? And here's the big one. Why do we chase legends like this? Is it about the gold? Or is it about something deeper? A need to believe that somewhere, hidden just out of sight, the world still holds secrets waiting to be revealed. The real treasure. Because here's what I think. The real treasure isn't buried in a tunnel. It's not sitting on a train covered in dust and darkness. The real treasure is the story, the history. The reminder that even 80 years later, World War II still has the power to captivate, confuse, and challenge us. Every tunnel dug, every radar scan conducted, every theory proposed, they're all part of humanity's endless attempt to make sense of the past and impose order on chaos. The Nazi gold train might not exist, but the questions it raises, those are very, very real. Your turn, so tell me, do you believe? And if you don't, why do you think so many people do? What would it take to convince you the train is real, or to convince you it's not? And if you had the resources, would you join the search, or would you let the legend rest? Share your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation, this debate between belief and skepticism, hope and reality is far from over. The search continues, the legend endures, and somewhere in Poland, someone is planning the next excavation, convinced that this time, they'll find what everyone else has missed. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But one thing's for certain, The Nazi gold train, real or not, will keep haunting us for years to come. And maybe that's exactly as it should be.